The reason why I chose the Flying V was I was, as a kid, when I started playing guitar, I was very inspired by guitarists like Leslie West, Jimi Hendrix, and the guy from Wishbone Ash, Andy Powell. They all played the Flying V, so it was quite obvious for me to, because I liked the shape of it, you know, and it looked very cool. So that was my choice for the guitar I would like to have and to play on. Later on, of course, by coincidence, I saw an album by a band called UFO, and I saw this young guy with a Flying V, like mine, and I heard the album and I was blown away, and that was Michael Schenker, and that became his signature guitar. So one thing we have in common, the Flying V has been a very important part of my life as a guitarist, and I will play it till the end.
I went out, and actually the first Merciful Fate record I bought was Don't Break the Oath, and it's still my favorite Merciful Fate record. So that's gonna be the first time, you know, I recognize Michael and his guitar playing. So when we worked with Michael Denner for 7th Shot, you know, he just came with his guitar. He had no amp, not anything, and he just plugged in, I don't know what he plugged into, some kind of robot in the studio, and it sounded like Michael Denner. Not because he's a robot, but he got that sound in him. It's not about equipment, it's about, you know, signature. It's about the magic fingers, you know, the way you play the guitar. As I said, Michael had and has a signature sound. You know, you can hear it's Michael's playing.
The very first album I did was Brad's 1980 with Hank Sherman, and we both play Flying V on that album, you know. So it was such a strong image with these Vs, you know, a twin lead guitar and 2 Vs. He had a dark one, I had a lighter one, or maybe it was the other way around. But you can see it on the album cover. The thing is, when we did the artwork on the cover, in the songs we made like a solo key, and we had these small black and white Flying Vs to see who plays solos where on the album. So it was kind of a small trademark, and it looked very nice. So I mean, that's the easy thing with the V. It's a very it grabs your attention, you know, and it's some kind of it's quite different compared to most other electric guitars, you know, and also the history, all these great guitarists who played V during the years.
But I remember back when we started out in Pretty Mates, the first time I actually heard about Michael Denner was when they did an album with the band Bratz, and that was the first time I ever heard about him. Then, of course, later on, I ran into him accidentally because there weren't at that time that many heavy metal bands in Denmark. And well, what can I say? He's always been, I think, one of the best guitar players in Denmark. He's my Michael Schenker. He appears on the Volbeat album, and so of course he's got a big influence on the metal scene today as well, because I mean he's an individual from the 80s that we all like very much, and I admire his playing. He's a great guitar player, and I really enjoyed what his style as well. And so there's no doubt whatsoever that he's had a big influence on the heavy metal scene, not only in Denmark but in the world, I think.
So the first many years I had to play on copies, you know, cheaper copies of the Flying V. But the first decent one I got was the Chord model. I played on the Merciful Fate albums with that guitar, you know, and that was a decent copy of the original Gibson. My first Gibson came in as late as around 1990, 91 or something. I got it as a present from the record company, and the first album I played with that guitar was In the Shadows, the reunion album by Merciful Fate. But seriously, up to that point, I couldn't afford to play on an original Gibson, and then again I got used to the chord guitar, so I was stuck. I was stuck to that one. I prefer to continue playing on the guitar I was used to play, and that's quite. That's the thing with me and my gear, you know. When I'm used to play with something, I stick to it, you know. And the same with my amplifiers and my effects and so on, you know. So, but when I got my first Gibson, I was very happy about it, you know, and very pleased because I could hear, especially on the sound, there was more beef in the original one compared to the Japanese copies I had during the years, you know. So that was a great experience, and nowadays I have maybe 14, 15 Gibsons, you know, with great sound. So I will never go back to my Japanese copies, you know, and play on them. But that was the way to get in touch with the Flying V way back in the beginning when the money was small, you know. Unfortunately, I sold these Japanese copies. I gave them away, you know. But an old friend of mine, he got the copy, the first copy I had. The one I played on Brass 1980, he had that guitar, you know, and he promised never to sell it except to me if he decides to do that, you know. So it's in my reach, you know, and that's okay, you know. but I hope to get that the guitar back one day, you know. Because the history of it, you know.
All it comes back to when I watched a TV show called Heavy Metal on Danish TV. Which actually, I was like 12 years old and it scared me shitless. I saw King Diamond, or Kim, I think his name was back then, showing off a skull and the Bible of Satan or whatever, and in came Mike with a white Flying V, and I knew I have to play one of those because my parents won't let me.
That was a great show. I remember that one. It was great.
Awesome. And today I still think that if we're talking Merciful Fate and...
Don't break the oath. Fantastic.
Come on.
Love it.
Melissa, and he actually calls his own Flying V Melissa, which is awesome.
That's right, yeah.
So I'm gonna call my Melissa too. And I think they influenced a lot of musicians doing what they did, because if you look back at power metal bands like Halloween, you can go back to Swedish roots like Candlemass and everything, and the whole string guitar, Flying V, nosy guitar sound with his Kim's or the King's voice on top of that really took Scandinavian music to another level.
But that's the nice thing about the V. It's quite simple in its structure, even though it had this funny and strange shape. It's quite easy to work. And also the nice thing when you play live, you know, it's light, so you won't hurt your back if you play a long grueling set or in a studio situation. So you can rest the guitar when you play lead. You can rest it on your leg during your lead performance, and that also gave you a feeling, so you can just concentrate on what's important, and that's to play the lead part. So that's another good reason to play a V, and I mean, it's a perfect guitar.
The first thing that comes in mind when I think about Michael playing wise is the way his leads are extremely fluent. I know Michael is a big fan of Michael Schenker, and that's pretty obvious actually that he is. Because he's got a lot of the same thing, you know. It ain't just... I mean, Michael never plays a solo just for the... I don't know, just for the course of wanking. He plays it because that's the way it needs to be. And he's got this great fluency where... and he's got a special tone as well, I'm sure bigger guitar experts than me would say. That he's very distinctive. You can always hear when it's him. Has the Flying V become a trademark for Michael? Yeah, I suppose it has, really, because Merciful Fate were the first as I remember anyway, the first heavy metal band to insist on the double flying V thing. I know Accept did the same thing, but that was later. So I suppose they were pioneers.
This is the Great Albert King, and this is one of the very first flying V's from 1958. Of course, these guitars are very impossible to get hold of, and if you should be lucky, you will pay a lot of money for this one. But I would sure love to have one of these original 58 copies, and also because it's from the year I was born, you know. So that could be nice. During the years, I've seen a lot of great guitarists I have a deep respect for using the flying V like I do. You know, the guys from Accept, Wolf Hoffman, Herman Frank, and so on. These guys also play the flying V. James Hetfield, Kirk Hammett, of course KK Downing from one of my all-time favorite bands, Judas Priest. These guys also run and play the V. The guy from Diamond Head also had a V play. So it's a pleasure to see musicians you respect and who play music you like, who also play the V. You know, it's like they're part of some kind of family, strangely enough. But I mean, I take more notice to these guys, what they do, because they play V like I do. It sounds strange, but that's the way I feel.